Welcome to KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're telling the stories of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. KC Cares is the intersection of the profit and nonprofit communities, making Kansas City a better place to live, work, and play. KC Cares is proudly sponsored by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggis. The pandemic has had an adverse impact in many ways, but children have been greatly affected, especially academically. According to a Stanford University study, reading skills at the very least have stalled for our young readers, while other studies indicate first graders have taken a really hard hit. Regardless, we need to catch our kids up, and the Lead to Read organization here in Kansas City is hard at work to make change. The organization was started in 2011 by Lynn and Jean Rundle, both former teachers. Now, 11 years later, it's going strong under the leadership of Polly Hart, who's our guest today. Polly, we're so glad to have you, and we can't wait to find out more about Lead to Read.
Thank you. I'm really thrilled to be here, and I'm very excited to spread the word.
And it's actually Lead to Read KC.
Yes, it is. It gets shortened quite a bit, but we do go by Lead to Read KC.
It seems like the title would be very self-evident, but I'm sure there's more behind just that. Give us a snapshot of what Lead to Read is all about.
Sure. Well, we are a local nonprofit organization, and we're focused on improving student literacy. Our mission is to support the social, emotional, and reading skills that are so foundational to every child's success in school, but also success in life. So we have been doing that primarily through our reading-based mentoring program for the past 11 years. And what that means is we are mobilizing the community, a community of volunteers who go out into the schools and they read with children once a week for 30 minutes. We say it's during the lunch hour. We found that that's a great time for working adults to break away. So we ask them to donate one lunch hour a week. However, there's no food involved. I always remind people of that, and no school lunches. But again, it is just a very convenient time for people to donate. And it is just once a week for 30 minutes. So what happens is we ask our volunteers, called reading mentors, to partner up with a student that we select for them. We serve students in first, second, and third grade because we're trying to get children to be reading proficient by the end of third grade, which I'll go into in a little bit, but I want to explain the volunteer process. So they're paired up with a student, and they meet with that student once a week for 30 minutes, and they read with the student. And people say, well, does the student read to me or do I read to the student? And the answer is yes. It's both, and it's wherever that child is. And that's the beauty of the program, as we meet the child where they are. And the volunteer really doesn't have to do any prep work. They don't have to bring any books. They really just need to show up. And pre-pandemic, we were managing about 1,400 volunteers who were reading with close to that many students every week. So it was really phenomenal. And then the pandemic hit and things changed. So we ended up going to a digital platform. And our students are now logging onto a computer. Our volunteers are logging on, and we're using a fabulous reading app called Hoot Reading, and that's how they make their connection. If you don't mind, I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about the third grade literacy focus, because a lot of times people are wondering, a lot of times people wonder, well, why are you focusing on third grade and why just the little kids? And, I'd rather work with older kids or whatever. So the focus is on third grade for a good reason. Children who are not reading proficiently by the end of third grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. And 85% of teens who are involved in the juvenile justice system are functionally illiterate. So if a child misses their third grade reading benchmark, they can begin this downward spiral in their education process because they can't keep up in the classroom. from birth to third grade, children are learning to read. They're learning language, letter sounds, words, simple reading skills. So they're learning to read. When fourth grade hits, students enter the classroom and they are expected to begin reading to learn other subjects, reading a math problem, reading instructions on the board, reading instructions on their computer. And if they can't do that, they can't keep up and they fall behind. Their confidence gets shattered. And that's when they become, oftentimes behavior issues occur. They lose interest, they lose motivation, and they lose confidence. So third grade is a turning point for students. It seems like, oh, it's third grade, they can make it up. And some can, some do. It's not, it's not the end, but life and school is so much better when a child is reading by the end of third grade and reading proficiently. The unfortunate news is that in Kansas City, like many large urban centers, the third grade reading proficiency is pretty dismal. Less than half of our third graders are reading proficiently. In some of the schools, the high needs schools, the number is more in the 20% range. So all of those kids are not meeting their third grade benchmark. And that was before the pandemic. So the pandemic has exacerbated the problem. The children, obviously, schools closed back in March 2020, and then they continued to remain closed, and schools were trying to do remote instruction. Some of the students we serve were literally out of the classroom and not receiving in-person instruction for 13 months, which is, more than a school year. And so if you had a child who was struggling in, maybe reading a year behind, now they're reading 2 years behind, or 3. So somebody explained it to me at one point. So you have a second grader who was finishing up their second grade year in March 2020. And they may be a struggling reader. So they might be reading at more of a first grade level, but they're in second grade and they're going to finish second grade. Well, they didn't finish second grade. And then they went to third grade, still reading at a first grade level, but now they're getting instruction remotely. So now they're trying to be a third grader, still struggling at a first grade reading level. And then that school year ended. And now that child is in fourth grade this year and trying to perform at a fourth grade level. So when you think of it that way, you can almost just feel their frustration and their challenges. So I don't like to paint a doom and gloom picture because there are solutions, and Lead to Read is one of them. We are part of the solution, and we have been for 11 years. And we do that by providing that support to the student once a week in their meeting them where they are. We support the teacher's curriculum in his or her classroom. We don't come in with a curriculum, and we don't impose it on the teachers because Lord knows they don't need one more thing right now. We just support what they're doing and give them that one-on-one instruction time that they can't give their students. So it has proven to be effective. We knew it. We felt it. We saw the relationships happening. And then we rolled the dice a couple of years ago and did a program evaluation and said, okay, we're going to find out if this is really measurable and if this works. And so we did that through UMKC's Urban Education Research Department. And the good news is it is making a difference. The students in our program were outperforming their control groups on district reading assessments and on sight word acquisition. So they were learning those sight words, which are so critical, faster and more of them in a school year. And the relationship building, the trust and the camaraderie between the student and the volunteer proved very valuable to both the student and the volunteer. And the teachers saw reported seeing, improved attitudes towards reading. And sometimes even behavior and attendance would improve because of our program.
Well, you've got two things going there as a former teacher and a parent. I mean, I remember my own kiddos and working with them, but you've got two things going there. You have the actual academic / cognitive skill of learning to read, but I love the idea that you have this relationship with another adult that's not their parent, it's not their teacher, connecting with the kid. Was this part of the founders' overall idea? Because I want to, tell our audience, this wasn't like some think tank type of things. These were two teachers who were just really passionate about lifting kids up.
Right. Yeah. A lot of the benefits of Lead to Read have been very fortunate byproducts, honestly. And that relationship building is one of them. The original goal was to help kids become better readers because the founders had been working with middle school students. They realized that they couldn't read. And so they said, wait a minute, we've got to figure this out before they get to middle school. That's when they, went back, did some research and said, okay, it's third grade. We got to get kids reading by third grade. So that was really the focus of it. The relationship building has been just a fabulous byproduct, and not just for the student. We are providing the student with another caring adult in their life, which is, and they trust this adult, they share with this adult, they have fun interacting. But honestly, the adult has as much fun, and the adult, I always say it's just a mutual love fest because the student falls in love with the reading mentor and vice versa. I remember the first time my husband volunteered, and he came home that day, and we're making dinner, and all of a sudden he goes, I wonder what Jamal is eating tonight. I'm like, really? Just one exposure, and he had a vested interest in that child. And that's what happens is you begin to care about the child, and then you become an advocate for the child, and you can see right along on their success with them. I love the fact that we are bringing Kansas City people into the urban core and into urban schools who may not have any other reason to go and visit a school in our urban core. And what happens is eyes and hearts are opened. They suddenly see, beautiful children, hardworking teachers, and they recognize that they can contribute and they can help make a difference. A lot of myths are dispelled when we get people together. And I also like to just, say that we're building bridges across this community by people who wouldn't interact with each other in a normal or a traditional sense are suddenly, right there with each other and developing these great relationships.
All right, so let's talk nuts and bolts. How many schools are you in, and what does your volunteer, situation look like now since you are delivering primarily digitally?
Yeah. So we have 4 areas that we serve. We've only talked about one, but we'll hopefully talk about the others. But so in terms of our schools, we are in 18 schools this year, which is about where we've been historically the past couple of years. But we are now serving about 500 students, where we used to serve about 11, 12, 1,300 students. The pandemic has caused that to drop off. We are rebuilding, and we have lots of requests from the schools to get back in their schools, bring back the volunteers. And so we hope to be back up to our, 1,000 by the end of the year or going into next fall. So we're always looking for volunteers. And I encourage people to visit leadtoreadkc.org and go ahead and click on Become a Reading Mentor. We have an online application. Truly, so many of our volunteers tell us it's the best part of their week. And it's a great diversion from their routine. And you walk away with a smile and feeling that you've done something really worthwhile. And, there are studies that show that volunteering has benefits to the volunteer. There's intrinsic reward. You feel like you've done a good thing, and you have. There's also building a sense of community. People who volunteer can suddenly become part of a community and have their network grow. I know we had a situation a couple of years ago that I thought was so funny. We had some volunteers go up to Garfield Elementary, which is up in the Northeast, and our program is whole class. So when they go into the schools, or when we do it remotely, there's 30 volunteers all together. So you're not by yourself. So this group of people walk in the school, and turns out these two volunteers live in the same apartment building, and they didn't know it. And so they met each other, and no, they didn't get married, but they carpooled together. And so it's just like, there again, it's just this sense of community that develops. And then the third benefit of volunteering is also, it's a great way to develop new skill sets. Oftentimes, I can tell you, we have helped a lot of people learn how to do Zoom and and digital programming. So there's a lot of benefits to becoming a volunteer, and the first one and foremost is obviously that you're going to feel really good about helping another person.
I'll let you take a drink because we've been talking a little bit. Tell me how you choose the kids, or are you able to match every third grader in every school that you're in?
Well, we choose first of all, the program is whole class. That means we don't pull kids out of the class. We don't pull the low readers out and help just give them the support. We believe that every student in the classroom can benefit from another caring adult in their life, whether or not they are a proficient reader or a struggling reader. Most of the readers in the classrooms that we serve are not proficient. So we do whole class. And what we do is we just ask the principal or the teachers, which classrooms would you like us to serve? And that's how we do it. So it's up to the school to pick which grade level, which classroom teacher, and the day of the week. And other than that, it's during that lunch hour, sometime between about 11 and 1. And yeah.
And you're with that same kiddo throughout the school year. So you're not switching kids. Okay.
Right.
I wasn't sure if you kind of moved people around.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. That's why the relationships develop and flourish. We've had situations just this last year where some of our volunteers were able to be paired with the same student for the third year in a row, because the student was still at the school and we were still serving those first, second, and third graders. So that's kind of magical. And it's wonderful if that can happen. It's not as common as we would hope, because unfortunately, there's a lot of mobility in the Kansas City school systems. So that means that children are moving oftentimes in the middle of the school year because of housing issues or caregiver issues and that kind of thing. So you can't always follow the student year to year, but sometimes you can. And when you can, we definitely try to make that happen.
And does the student choose the book or the teacher? How does that work out?
We ask the teacher, the only thing we ask of the teacher is to have the kids ready and to make sure that each child comes to the reading session with 3 books. And one of those books should be on the child's reading level that they can read. And then the other 2 can be the same, or they could be ones that they want the volunteer to read to them, or that they want to read together. So yeah, the volunteer does not, they just need to show up, honestly. And then the student comes prepared with their bag of books each week.
Well, I know you said it's been a challenge with the pandemic, and across the whole nonprofit way, across everything, but particularly with the nonprofit community. But perhaps you've brought some people in who it makes it a little easier to read. I want to make sure that we talk about, you mentioned 3 other areas. So jump on in. We don't want to miss a moment or miss a beat there.
Yeah, well, and for the most part, they are the result or the outcome of the pandemic. So we developed the digital platform because we couldn't get back into the schools physically. Now, I will say that we are going back into the schools, 2 or 3 schools in person this second semester. And that will be our goal, is to go back into the schools in person, but we'll always maintain a digital platform as well to serve both communities. So once we developed this digital platform, we were asked to respond to an RFP from School Smart KC regarding tutoring, because studies have indicated that the best way for these kids to recover learning loss and to catch up is with one-on-one individualized tutoring. So we're working with Hoot Reading, which does our digital platform, and we are providing certified teachers to work with students every week, 3 times a week, and they are providing intensive one-on-one tutoring to students that the school selects, and then we manage the tutoring program. So it's really fortunate that we're able to work with an organization that can provide certified teachers to do the tutoring. And that's really what sets us apart. And we're just starting our second semester of that program. We served about 150 kids the first semester. We expect to serve that many or more second and moving forward. So that's an exciting program and really directed at reading recovery, intensive work with the kids. The second program that has really blossomed during the pandemic or as a result of the pandemic, is our Reading for Life author partnerships. Many students have suffered emotional trauma, and mental health among the youth is very troublesome as a result of the pandemic, being away from their peers, the stresses and strains that they're going through. We have partnered with local authors who have written children's books that focus on mental health and well-being. And we had a small program going before the pandemic, but now we have expanded it, and we're working with 3 authors, and we have 2 more in the works. And their books are children's books that focus on managing your mental health, managing your emotions, how to deal with negative thoughts, anxiety, all those issues that kids are dealing with. So what we do is the author comes to the school and visits the kids and does a really fun interactive program with the kids and reads the book. And then every child gets a copy of that book as well. And so it's really a wonderful program because it has some staying power with the books staying with the kids, but also when possible, our volunteers attend those sessions as well. So then they can reinforce some of those concepts with their student throughout the year. So there's, I think, 3 books right now, and then they've focused on mental health. But then the other issue that has reared its head as a result of the pandemic is childhood obesity. So we are working with 2 other authors on physical fitness and nutrition, and we hope to get those out into the schools second semester and into next year. So that's been a really rewarding program for knowing that it's in direct response to a need that's out there. And we were able to pivot and get there with it. So
how cool. Pandemic positives. There are a few of them. I have to ask you, you're in the schools, obviously your volunteers are not paid. but there's time, there's effort, there's resource. How does Lead to Read do that? Every nonprofit's got to find money. So how's that? And is that challenging for you?
Yeah. Well, it's always challenging. We are a very small, I always say we're lean and mean organization. And, but we've had really good success with fundraising. And a lot of that is because we have such a great volunteer core. People recognize the good work that we're doing. We are truly the boots on the ground. We're not talking about this, we're doing it. We're not doing a bunch of research, we're jumping in and doing it. And people appreciate that. And they recognize that their money is being well spent. And we run a very frugal operation. We have mostly part-time employees. And so it's just, fundraising is a constant. It's just something you have to deal with. But fortunately, people recognize that when they're supporting Lead to Read, they're supporting the children who are going to become our future workforce. And that's important to everybody in our community. And we're getting more and more exposure in the community. We have yet a fourth program that has come out of the pandemic as well. So it's called Reading is Everywhere. And what we realized is we have a very robust reading program, book distribution program in our schools. We give children a lot of books during the school year. I think we've given, more than 20,000 books to children in our program. But once the schools closed, we were still trying to get books out to kids, and we did. But we realized, kids are everywhere. And so we did a little bit of research and discovered that children spend 80% of their waking time outside of school. So we decided we wanted to put books in the community in non-traditional places that are not schools and are not libraries or daycares. So we have developed a program, and we partner with community organizations, including social service organizations like transitional housing, the police department, homeless shelters, as well as barbershops and hair salons and restaurants and some retail organizations. And we are putting baskets of books in their buildings, and children and their parents or guardians are welcome to take the books. And there's signage on the basket that says, these are for taking. Read while you wait and take it and give it to someone else. And what we do then is we replenish those baskets every month. And so we have about 19 partners right now in the community that have our baskets of books, and they are being dispersed out into the community amongst the kids. And it's really rewarding. I love going in and seeing an empty basket of books, an empty basket without books, because then I know that the books are out, and we simply replenish those. And each month we keep that going. We're also partnering, as part of that, we partner with neighborhood associations and things like that when they're doing block parties, when they're doing community events, and we are happy to attend those and provide books for those as well. So people are hearing and seeing us a lot more.
You're everywhere. It's Lead to Read KC. Polly, thank you so much. We want to send people to your website. There's ways for you to be involved. There's ways for you to support. There's ways for, everybody to feel good and really do good in the world and help a kid really get those skills. So thank you so much for what you do.
Oh, thank you. And I encourage everybody to jump on the website, take a look, see how you can get involved. We have a big challenge in front of us as a community, and I think we need all hands on deck and give it a try. It's really the easiest, most meaningful volunteer experience in Kansas City, and you'll fall in love with your student and know you're doing great work with them.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us for KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're produced by Charitable Communications, and we're proudly sponsored by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation. If you'd like to be a guest on KC Cares, please visit our website at kccaresonline.org and spread the love. You find us on Facebook and Twitter at KC Cares Radio and on Instagram at KC Cares Online. Catch us Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. on ESPN, 1510 a.m. and 94.5 FM. Thank you for joining us on KC Cares.